WhatsApp and WeChat, they are the best, worst thing to happen to schools. We're going to talk about that next on the EdTech vlog. Hi, I'm Dr. Matt Harris, and this is the EdTech vlog. Today we're going to talk about an element of school communications that are kind of hot topics or hot tools that we're using in schools, mostly outside the United States, but you know what? They're going to make their way into the United States. We're specifically going to talk about two messaging apps, WhatsApp and WeChat. Now, the reason that we're choosing both of these is because these are the two most prevalent peer-to-peer messaging systems in the world. Obviously, WeChat is used primarily in China, but it is being used more and more outside of China as people connect in there, and there are so many people in China, like, you have to know how to use it. The other one is WhatsApp. WhatsApp is an incredibly powerful tool that we find that schools, people, humans, whomever, outside of the United States and outside of China are using to a very high degree. So if you go into most countries around the world to communicate with people peer-to-peer, even communicate with like businesses, you're going to be expected to use one of these two apps. Now, it's not everywhere. There are still places where they're using other apps. I won't go through the list of apps that are being used, but primarily these two apps are the ones that we're seeing all around the world. Now, is this a good thing or a bad thing for schools? They are peer-to-peer apps. They are direct communication apps. They don't technically require a cellular signal or a phone number. They require internet access, and they can be used on your phone or on your computer. If you've got an account, you can open up these apps on your computer and have that direct messaging. Because they're being used by so many people, it's a great communication tool to connect with students and parents and teachers. But as I said at the top here, it is the best, worst tool that we have out there, to be honest with you. Now, why is it so good and why is it so bad? And then what am I going to suggest for you as a school on making a determination whether you should allow WhatsApp and WeChat into your organization? Okay? So, what's good about them? They are, as I said, direct peer-to-peer connections. WhatsApp is even encrypted. So the messages that are sent are not able, you're not able to hack them very easily. That's what the peer-to-peer encryption means. They're quite prevalent. You can't go into China and make a connection with somebody or even send money without having some sort of connection to WeChat. WhatsApp and WhatsApp groups, specifically where you put groups of people together, are used all over the place between social groups, professional groups. It's becoming a very common form of peer-to-peer communication. It's almost an expectation. There are parts of the world where even businesses are using these two apps as a form of direct contact. So imagine, 50 or 60 years ago, not listing phone numbers or using the phone. That wouldn't work for schools. And now this is what's happening with these peer-to-peer apps. We're having to use them because they are being used by everybody. And since they are being used by everybody, or a large majority, that means that there's an opportunity to connect with people on a very immediate and large-scale basis. But there's a flip side to that coin, and as I said, it's the worst because you don't control anything. You don't control the messaging. They're not going through your systems, so the things that are said on these platforms cannot be controlled. They cannot be monitored. They can't be kind of guided by what the school wants to send out. They're also very difficult to use when sending out large broadcast messages because you have to make sure that people have an account. So you can't use them as a primary tool because you can't guarantee that everybody has them. You also can't control the messaging. And the biggest problem we're seeing with these particular apps is they're creating environments and pockets of I almost want to call it kvetching or rumor mills, where small groups of people are using these apps in connection with teachers and parents or even students to say things about the school that are kind of tearing at the social fabric of the school. So whereas we can provide information and connect with people directly, these apps are also creating kind of discord within the school because it gives immediate response and immediate connection to people using, again, that peer-to-peer direct connection. That's a bad thing. That causes major challenges. And when I talk to schools, they're saying that they're using these apps, but they don't really know how to do it, and they don't know if it's a good or bad thing. Well, that's a question that schools have to answer in order to really jump into 2019, which is when we're recording this video, and jumping into the tools and requirements of communication within their school. So are you going to allow this as a primary tool, just the way that we had communications 4, 5, 10 years ago around Facebook? Is Facebook going to be a tool that you're going to use? And we know that it's not perfect, but it's very powerful. And that's what these are. They're not perfect, but they're very powerful. What I would suggest you do is determine the value for the community and then create rules and processes around them. If you have alternate means of providing communication or direct messaging to parents, teachers, students, whomever within the community, avoid these apps. They're not good for you. You don't have enough institutional control. If you're using Google or Microsoft and you have the ability to send out direct messaging, if you have a central communications platform to send information and put in information, if you have a robust email communications policy, these apps are probably going to be more harm than good. The immediacy of communication is not worth the heartache of that social discord that they'll create. But a lot of schools are not at that level of maturity or have that level of resourcing to have such a communications policy, whereas this provides a very easy, usable resource, which means you can connect to multiple parents. You can create groups of people to go on a field trip. And so in that case, yeah, I would use them. I think it's incredibly powerful. It engages in modern forms of communication that parents and students are used to. So it becomes very, very powerful. But if you are going to go down that road, I would make sure to have discussions, especially with your teachers, maybe with your parents, about what are the things that are okay to talk about, what are the pieces of information that are confidential that shouldn't be on there, and what do you do in case of rumor milling, social discord, or like cyberbullying that can come with these apps? How are you going to handle those things? Think about those in advance prior to giving the thumbs up or thumbs down about using these in the community. Now that said, what we find in most communities and schools these days is you haven't made the decision. They've been already brought into your community by the members of your school community. Now is the time to step in and make a decision, whether it's on a classroom level or an entire school level, or even just a group, a working group or an after-school activity or something. Are we going to use these apps? How are we going to use them? If we don't use them, what's the alternative that allows for two-way communication and delivery of information? If we are going to use them, what are the rules that we're going to follow? And how do we ensure that we're not talking about things or saying things that are going to cause harm? Okay? So that really doesn't answer the question, but again, you understand what I'm saying here, that WhatsApp and WeChat, being very powerful, have become the best, worst communication tool within our schools today. Cool? Well, hey, do me a favor. At the bottom of this page here, you're going to see that there are a couple buttons to subscribe to my channel and to follow me on Twitter. On this channel, I will talk about all sorts of things related to communications and education, anything related to technology in a school. That includes the academic side and the operational side, the connections to the community, and best ways to move information around. Another thing I do quite frequently is post articles that either I've written or I've seen in my research around everything related to technology and this notion of communication, digital citizenship, best tools for the trade, doing things that are 21st century relevant. Those are coming up quite frequently. So please follow me on Twitter. My handle is @MattHarrisEdD. And tell me what you think. I would love to see some comments here at the bottom of the page or messages sent to me. Is WeChat good for your school? Is WhatsApp good for your school? What are the things we need to know about them? What are the pros and cons? Are you using them? Have you run into problems? What are your great success stories? Share those. And then people that come to this site will be able to see them as well. And maybe I'll share a few of them out on Twitter. So please, give me your experience from the field. Tell me what you think. And I'll see you on WeChat. I'll see you on WhatsApp. All right. Have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.